If you want to be genuinely happy in life, say goodbye to these 9 habits. This is the title of the article that I'm gonna be reading with you right now. I can tell you that there is no such thing as happiness in psychology. The closest definition of what happiness looks like is flourishing. It's been defined by the University of Pennsylvania, by the Department of Positive Psychology. So basically the branch of psychology that studies happiness, what we usual people call happiness, is called positive psychology. And so they define what we call happiness as flourishing. And later I can tell you about what they actually mean and what they found out through research, actual research, right? What you need to do or feel or experience to be happy. But for now, let's go through these 9 habits that make you unhappy, supposedly. Okay? So, the first habit is worrying about the future. And I guess any kind of worrying is not good, right? So what is worrying? Okay, and you can't really worry about the past because that's already, how to say? I mean, worrying about the future, that by definition, you can't worry about the past because past is already finished, right? So there is nothing to worry. There are facts, right? And you can't worry about the present because, well, if you were really present, then you wouldn't worry because, let's say, if you look around, you can easily check the environment. And so you can easily find out what you're supposed to do. If there is something dangerous, well, you have to run or fight, right? If there is nothing dangerous, so then you can just relax. Okay, so you can only worry about the future. And I was the worrying type, to be honest. And in my case, I did 2 things. Number 1, I tried to what's called mindfulness. And I hate this word because it's usually combined with mindfulness meditation. And so I'm not a meditating type. The best meditation for me is cycling, especially cycling on my exercise bike. And so for me, I really don't do meditation as, sit down, relax, focus on your breath and stuff like that. What I do is I pay attention to my breath and I take a deep breath. And so what that does is it kind of focuses your attention from whatever is happening in your head, in your thoughts, to your body. And when you focus on your body, you realize that most likely your body is in safety, right? It's safe, it's maybe healthy, reasonably healthy, right? And so then you're like, oh wait, I'm fine. And so then you stop worrying. And when you do worry, then you just have to analyze it. So for example, just the other day, one of the customers, so I run a school, right? And so customers are parents, but the kids are the actual people who I interact with, right? And so I was talking to one of the mothers, and she was basically trying to get something impossible. So her daughter is getting to the age where she needs to transfer to junior high school. And in Japan, elementary school is kind of easy, but then junior high school, you can choose which junior high school you're going to. And so because of that, if you can study harder, if you can pass a test, you can get to a better junior high. Okay? And so because of that, there is this whole industry of test prep. And so now she's thinking about, what should I do? What should I do? And so I am teaching English, right? And she basically comes to me and she's like, oh, I don't know what to do, but I'm thinking, let her study English harder, and then she will get a better score, and so she can go to some better school. And then she's telling me as if I can fix that, because I ask her, so does she like to study? No. Does she like to read? No. Does she use English at home? No. Do you know English? No. And so basically this kind of, on one side there is this mother's kind of push for me to do the magic, right, without her ever doing anything, mother. On the other hand, I realize that it's impossible, and so I try to tell her. And so that kind of brings this worry in my life, because on one hand, I don't want to lose the income, right? So if they decide, okay, no, we can't study English, so then I'm losing a customer, and so then I have to find replacement customers, which actually I think it's possible, and probably it's actually easier. Oh, I feel so bad for saying that. But anyway, so my point is that conversation, and she also mentioned, oh, I think other parents are also thinking like that. And I'm like, who are other parents? She almost doesn't contact other parents because it's just happens like that. So of course she doesn't know many other parents, but then she says that, and it makes me think, look, who is the other parents? Am I in danger of losing other customers? And so that, of course, it makes me worried. And so what I did in this situation was this. I remember it was Friday evening or Saturday. I was like, okay, I'm going to bed now. And I realized that I can't. I don't want. I feel that I need to stay up. There is something bothering me deep inside. And I realized that I don't know what's bothering me. Okay? And so then I'm like, okay, slow down. Why don't you want to sleep? And then I answer to myself, well, because I'm worried. I feel stress. I'm like, okay, what's making you stress? And then I'm, okay, well, what's making me stressed is that situation that A, I don't know who the customers are, and B, I don't know what to do about this. Okay. So in this case, what helps me is I ask myself, okay, so what is the worst case scenario? Number one, who might be the other customers? And then in my mind, I'm thinking, who else can that be who is, according to that mother, could be thinking of, they want more English, less. So at my school, we do craft. And this is like one of the sales points. This is one of the benefits, the differences. And so then mother says, like, oh, no, like you shouldn't focus on craft so much, because then if, oh my God, I don't know, like we have to switch schools if we want more English or something like that. So basically it's kind of like a veiled threat. And so then I'm thinking, okay, who else can that be? So she meets 2 or 3? Yeah, 3 other customers. And I know that one of them is quitting. Already I know. So that leaves 2, right? And out of those 2, none of them are old enough to bother with that. So they actually enjoy craft. And so I'm thinking, wait, so it's either 2 more customers or it's actually nobody. And she's just like not lying, but kind of twisting facts. And so in this case, I'm like, okay. So the possible damage is losing 3 customers, which of course I don't want to do, but it's not deadly to me, right? So that by understanding what is at stake, I'm actually decreasing the anxiety, because I'm like, oh, okay, so that is the possible outcome. And if that happens, then I can do this or I can do that. So basically you prepare for the possible outcome. And so instead of just worrying, you prepare for the future. And that's a huge difference. Worrying is just thinking, and not doing anything about it. But in my case, I'm like, okay, this is a possible danger. I need to prepare myself. That's very, very natural for humans to do. So as I mentioned, instead of worrying about the future, you can plan, or you can focus on how you feel right now and then you're like, oh, okay, actually it's not so bad. Okay, so the next habit is comparing yourself to others. And this is, again, I agree, but I disagree. Here is why. I believe that everything can be known in comparison. And in Russian there is a saying, «Всё познается в сравнении», which actually means what I just said, that you can know everything only when you compare it to something else. So let's say if somebody says, okay, this water is, I don't know, 30 degrees. And you're like, well, what is 30 degrees? You don't know which system, right? So you need to know, like, 30, is it hot? Is it Celsius? Is it Fahrenheit? You don't know. So that's the point. It's okay to compare yourself to others. What's not okay is to try to compete with others in, let's say, whatever you are not good at. So one of the best examples I can come up with is the muscle fiber. Okay, there are basically two, well, more, but main two types of muscle fiber, which are fast twitch and slow twitch. Let's simplify. But people with fast twitch muscles, they can run fast, but they can't run for long distances. People with slow twitch muscles, they can run for long distances, but they can't run as fast. So their top speed is not as fast. Okay? And so of course you can train yourself to kind of match the opposite type, but you can't train yourself to beat the highest performer if they train in the matching exercise. So let's say a fast twitch muscle person could beat an average slow muscle person, right? Slow twitch muscle person, oh my god, in let's say long distance running, if the average that person doesn't train. But it's impossible to beat a good, like, gifted person who also trains, right? So that's my point. You need to know your strong points, and you need to compete only in what you actually want to compete in those strong points, and also in your values. Okay, so the third habit is neglecting self-care. I can give you an example. In my case, self-care, surprisingly, is riding motorcycles. And I think since January this year, so since January 2023 to about July, actually, I think I didn't go for even one long ride, or maybe one or two. And how I explained it to myself is because I should focus on, let's say, working harder. Okay? And so I was working hard every day, every week, never taking more than a couple hours off. And what I found out in July, for example, is that I actually haven't accomplished much, and I kind of wasted half a year of my life. So our life, in my belief, is defined by the certain moments. So when you're old, you will not remember all of your life. You will remember just some moments of your life. And so, how to say, if you just make one routine, one huge long routine, without anything good in your life, then you will have no life. It's basically kind of not living, right? So in my case, it was like that. I could not remember even one good moment from that half a year. I mean, of course, there were some good points with my son, for example, with my family, for example, but they were kind of limited, and there were no bright memories like I would usually have when, for example, I go riding. Usually it's a sunny day, usually it's amazing, astonishing scenery, which, you know, the kind of scenery that you will put on a wallpaper, yeah? But I didn't have that. And so I felt that my life was actually lacking. And so I do actually agree with it, neglecting self-care, but I don't know. You need to know how to take care of yourself. And in this case, what I can recommend is this. Know your values. And in my case, what also helped me was, what's it called? Via character strengths. If you search, it's via Institute character strength test. You can find it, you can do that test, and it will show you basically what you're good at. And not only so, and don't look at it just like, oh, I'm good at this, but these are also your values. Understand? So you're good at it and you value it. And in my case, one of my highest strengths or values is called appreciation of beauty. Okay? And that's true. That's 100% true. It guides my everyday choices. Let's say my classroom looks much better than most other classrooms I see. And some classrooms I'm like, oh my God, it's so dark. How can you teach? How can you work in this place? And I just don't understand how others can do that. And in my case, I remember I asked once, so a new customer comes, I'm asking, how did you find us? And they're, on internet. So why did you decide to try this school and not other schools? And they say, your classroom looks beautiful. I'm like, yes, it does. So you see, when two people can understand each other on that kind of level, it means they have very similar strengths and values. Okay? So, next one, holding on to grudges. This is the next habit that prevents you from being happy. What do I think about that? I think it's true. And but honestly, I don't think how to say, holding on to grudges. I think some people have naturally better memory. So I have really bad memory, so for me it's easy to forget things. I actually, in my case, I have to do the opposite thing. I have to write down what I hate about some people, and then I can remember next time. But what I do, I have a different problem. And that is not holding on to grudges, but holding on to, shocking events, I guess. So one example was this. When the war in Ukraine started, it was, I believe, first week of the war, I saw a video of basically a park in Kherson. Kherson is the south of Ukraine. Now it's liberated already. And there was somebody filming this video with a whole park, and you could see that that park had kind of like an ambush prepared. There were Molotov cocktails, and there were people getting ready to fight. The problem was those people were all dead, and dead not in like natural way. Their bodies were like shredded to pieces basically, and the trees were also shredded to pieces. And to me that was like, oh my God, this is so horrible. And I could not forget that video for several days. And then I was like, okay, why can't I forget it? It's terrible, yes, but here's the thing. I believe that my subconscious mind was remembering that so that I could learn from it. And so what I think is, even now, when something bad happens, I always think about it from this point of view. I consciously ask myself, okay, what should I do next time differently? What should I do next time to avoid this kind of situation happening ever again? And that usually helps me to A, process a bad experience, and B, basically forget. Once you process it, it kind of disappears from your life. So in my case, with that experience of, bodies being destroyed in the park, not bodies, real people, I remembered it because I thought, my God, this is exactly what I would do. And people were hiding behind trees, and the trees were kind of pierced through. Like you could see giant holes in the trees. the trees were basically shredded by this kind of high caliber machine gun from a, I guess, BTR, or I think BTR, DMB. I don't know what it was exactly, but anyway, so people were hiding behind a tree, and their bodies were torn to pieces. And so I thought, oh my God, this is why I couldn't forget it. It's because I would be hiding behind a tree, just like those guys were. I would be hiding behind a tree with a Molotov's cocktail, right? And so then I thought, okay, so I have to think better. Then I researched what kind of caliber can pierce through trees. And then I realized that, well, you know what? Trees are actually not good for hiding behind. Okay, so, I mean, of course they defend from like a low caliber, but not from high. And so, you see, this is kind of, this is the kind of information that you do need to remember, right? And so holding on to grudges actually is very useful. So if you think about it like that, if you think about it, okay, this is the information that I need to process, then you will stop trying to forget about it. You will start thinking, okay, how do I avoid this situation in the future? How do I use this information? Okay, so the next, fifth habit is overthinking. Overthinking is, I don't know. They explain it as overthinking can trap us in a cycle of what ifs and should haves. And again, this is basically, you know, it's, I don't like saying that because I used to be a journalist and I would sometimes kind of get stuck writing and I would have to write more, but I'm like, I don't know what to write about. So what ifs is worrying about the future, should haves is about holding the grudges, you know, about the past. So this is exactly the same what they already talked about, what we talked about. So moving on, the sixth habit that destroys your happiness is chasing perfection. And I don't know. In my case, I do agree that I tend to try to be perfectionist, but recently it's getting less and less and less. For me, I replaced it with good enough, you know? So nothing is perfect, fine. And if something is good enough, then it's good enough. Then I accept it. I learned to just think about it like that. But the funny thing is that I believe perfectionism is physiological. It's not personality, it's not your upbringing, it's something in the body. Because I can see small kids as early as 2 years old, they demonstrate perfectionism. Nobody has taught them that. It's impossible to teach them that, but they do that. So I believe this is actually physiological, and I think you can solve it. And since this is a physiological, it's kind of hard to just override it with your personality changes. In my case, again, with a good enough, I just physically tried to retrain myself to think about in terms of good enough. Again, one more point is, do I want to spend time doing this? For example, when I'm washing dishes, I want them to be perfect. But then I ask myself, do I want to spend my life washing dishes? No. So, okay, just do good enough job, okay? That's my attitude. But if we try to go deeper, I think maybe supplements would do. As I mentioned in one of the videos, you can search this channel for supplements. You will see that ashwagandha with was it St. John's wort, I think it's called. They decrease your nervousness. And as such, they kind of reprogram your brain to think in a different way. Then you can stop them, and then you can just think in a new way, in a more balanced way, if you want. Next, fear of failure. That's the seventh habit. Fear of failure. Honestly, I think this is very, very similar to the chasing perfection. And I think fear of failure. I think everybody should be afraid of failure, because this is, natural instinct, right? Let's say there is a stream that we need to jump over, and there is an alligator in the stream. If we are not afraid of failure, we just jump into the stream and die, right? So this is a natural good thing to have. The problem is, are we just afraid, or are we actually doing something to avoid failure? And this goes back to one of the first points, which was that worrying about the future. So of course, fear and worry is the same, and failure and the future are, failure is in the future. So again, do what I told you before, and then you will think, oh, okay, if I fail, that will happen. And then you just make a conscious choice. If you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this because the risk is too high and the upside is too low, then just don't do it. Why should you even worry about it then, right? But if you think, no, the upside is so huge that I will always regret not trying, well, then do it and don't fear. It's like, do you know that saying? If I just want to say it correctly, but I forgot how. If you worry, don't do. If you're doing, don't worry. Like that. So it's kind of like that. Just remember that and you'll be fine. Okay? Then, living in the past is the 8th habit. Again, this is exactly same as holding on to grudges. So, again, process your past, deal with it, then you will forget it. Seeking external validation is the last and the 9th habit. Seeking external validation. Okay, so they define it as seeking for approval or praise of others. Okay? And you know what? I actually agree with that. But at the same time, it's not a bad thing. Humans are supposed to have a coherent society, and one of the ways to have a coherent society is through everybody trying to, basically build a good community, and the only way to do that is to be approved by others. So that's not a bad thing. It's when it's too much, that's the problem. And I don't know, honestly, I think I used to struggle with this a lot, and I think these fear of failure, chasing perfection, and seeking external validation, they are very connected. So basically, I think it's low self-esteem. In my case, I honestly don't know. It's maybe I still do have low self-esteem, but I don't know. I learned to redefine it in the sense that do I believe that I can achieve something or not? And then you can not think about yourself as this kind of good person, bad person, worthy, not worthy. Just think about, can I achieve this? And it's fine if you can't, because maybe you didn't train for that. And maybe, I think it comes from wrong values. So when you don't know your real values, which I believe are based in your body, so they are not, I mean, of course, some of them are brought in by, let's say, upbringing from your family, but many of them are shaped by your body. And so if you don't follow your real values, then you will always find that your life is lacking, and then you will be like, okay, I'm wrong, I'm weak, I'm bad, I'm terrible, because your life doesn't match your values. And when that happens, then you have low self-esteem. Then you're seeking external validation. And this is what I found since I started kind of moving my life towards what I care about, what I actually care about, then my self-esteem kind of became a non-issue. I am fine. Before I used to think, if I can't go to somebody, to a stranger, and start a conversation, I'm somehow deficient. I thought so, right? But is it true? I am an introvert, and I learned that, you know what, it's fine. I can if I really want to, or if I really need to. But if I don't want, well, then what's the problem? There is nothing bad about that. And maybe later I will change this opinion, but for now it's like that. So these are the 9 habits. Let's recap quickly. Worrying about the future, comparing yourself to others, neglecting self-care, holding on to grudges, overthinking, chasing perfection, fear of failure, and living in the past. And seeking external validation. Okay, so they are down, out of the way. Goodbye. See you later. Next, what are the actual factors that make you happy? Or in this case, we're talking about flourishing, as Martin Seligman defines it as flourishing. You can read his book. It's called Flourish. So the acronym is PERMA, P-E-R-M-A. P stands for positive emotions. So if you have, and so think about this as, if you lack one of these, it's very difficult to be happy. Example, positive emotions. Can you be happy without positive emotions in your life? No. So have them. Number 2, E, engagement. Basically, it's paying attention to what you're doing and wanting to pay attention to what you're doing. So if you're completely unengaged, you can't be happy, right? If you're just like in your dream world because you hate your life so much, well, then you're not happy. If you are engaged, then you're happy. Next, PER, relationships. If you're lonely, you can't be happy. So you need to have good relationship or good enough relationship with family, friends, whatever, right? Workers at your company, so on. PERM. M is meaning. I believe this is one of the most difficult ones to achieve, but if your life is completely meaningless, if you're not living in accordance with your values, well, how can you be happy? You can't, right? And so you need to find your meaning or make your meaning in life, and then you just live your life. And if you want to know more about this, please leave a comment, because I know a lot about this. I've studied this. I actually have a certificate from University of Pennsylvania. So anyway, and the last one is A, achievements. So I actually struggled with this when I was a teenager, because when you have nothing to show in your life, it's kind of hard, right? It's like, what have you done with your life? Nothing. Well, can you be happy with that? No. And so your life achievements can be a strong kind of supporting block for your happiness, because you're like, hey, maybe I'm sad now, but look what I've done in my life. That's amazing. Yay. And so these are 5 points that can make you happy. And if you have them, then chances are that you are happy. And that's it for today. These were, if you want to be genuinely happy in life, say goodbye to these 9 habits and say hello to those 5 factors that I just mentioned, PERMA. I will see you next time.